Welcome to Theba Time, where I discuss thoughtful tools, resources, and shared experiences to help and encourage caregivers of loved ones living with dementia. Good afternoon, caregivers all over. We're here to be a resource and support and hopefully offer you some very helpful tools as you navigate dementia, any form of dementia, which there is many, with your loved one. Specifically, we are about to roll all up into Thanksgiving and Christmas. And they're stressful already enough because they involve a lot of family members. So we did this last year, and Carolyn has some great thoughts, not just some thoughts about it, but also some tools. And so we don't have to freak ourselves out about these holidays. Now, here's my experience. Now, we of course are talking about Thanksgiving and Christmas, but my first experience with holiday, and this was a birthday.
A birthday?
My dad freaked out. First of all, my dad had the dementia Lewy body, so it has a different...
They have some different symptoms.
It is different. Now, we know the motor systems, but where I thought it would be like my mom, who has just what I call regular Alzheimer's, I thought he wouldn't remember his birthday all day long until we were able to celebrate it that night after work. But he remembered. Because we didn't make a big deal about it in the morning, we were just going to do the whole celebration at the apartment and give him his presents, and then we were going to go out and eat. But when we got there, we could tell something was up. And he thought that we had forgotten his birthday. So that's the difference, because my mother is not going to remember her birthday. And even if we celebrated it for a brief moment, 5 minutes later, she's not going to remember it's her birthday. So you do have to treat each situation different and according to what their disease is, right? Don't you think?
Like, yes, the disease and each person's individual circumstance even with the same disease.
Did I introduce you?
Did you introduce me?
Well, who knows? The cat started meowing, then I had to turn it off.
Let's do it real quick.
Carolyn Berry, the awesome, she's my mentor. She doesn't like it when I say that, but she is, and she is with Alzheimer's Arkansas.
Okay.
Is it Arkansas Alzheimer's?
No, you said
it right.
You always say it correctly.
I'm just paranoid now all of a sudden. It's easy to get it mixed up.
Anyway, very easy.
Start us off again there, young lady.
Yeah, so we were talking about the birthdays and, well, the different dementia. So each individual is different, so you can get a unique experience even with the holidays. So where you were saying your mother may not remember, and not that someone will remember, but they may take having a birthday differently, especially if you tell them that they're 86 or however old and they think they're a different age. So sometimes you might have to just celebrate the birthday.
Stay away from the number.
Just stay away from the number. Every circumstance, every situation can be different, and it may change from year to year, time to time. So being observant and paying attention to what's going on.
Okay. All right. That makes sense, the birthdays. But now let's lead into the big holidays, which are about cooking and family members and groups and stress.
Ooh. So one thing that is very difficult for a lot of people is just letting family members know about the diagnosis. Sometimes some people don't like to tell their family members that their loved one has the diagnosis.
Yeah, because it might be the immediate family that does know, but the cousins and the other aunts and uncles who you may be not as close with, but you want to celebrate a holiday with, they may not. You may not have told them for whatever reason, which is okay. But that's a good point.
Yeah, so
whoever your guest list is.
Yeah, so knowing your guest list and making sure they're educated. And I think I know there will be some education depending on how far along your loved one is, where they are, the stage they're in. you don't want to say to people, you don't want people saying, do you remember me to them all the time? Why don't you remember me? Or them trying to get them to remember them can be very frustrating.
Yeah, so you brought up a good point last year about first, know who your guest list is. Don't make the assumption that they know about Alzheimer's. And if they do, don't make the assumption that they know at what stage your loved one is at. You have the experience. So if you already know some triggers, stay away from those and put those in the email and just say, you don't try to not do this or try to do this. I mean, I feel like you have the freedom to do that since you're having them over or you're going over there.
Of course you should. And that's where we use the word advocating, but that's where it's taking care of your loved one is. About giving them some pointers, some expectations, even more than pointers, some expectations of, don't try to get them to remember who you are. And, that's hard for people because everybody wants to be remembered and have them to introduce who they are. But maybe depending on where they are, and if they don't accept it, tell them not to say it. Again, if I'll use the example, if it's like, I'm your cousin Linda, and they like, Linda, if they don't get it, just say, I'm Linda. Leave the label off because that could be very confusing for them.
That's true. Don't make the assumption that they just go into it knowing that they're probably not going to know who you are, but keeping it simple and just saying, I'm Linda.
Yes.
And if they ask,
then you can tell them.
You can say, I'm your cousin, but keep it simple.
Yes, and I think we have a tendency, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes because people just want to be remembered. They want to be the one that's remembered. And, a lot of times it's somebody that maybe had a great relationship or have one, and they was like, surely they remember me. And it's some part of them that wants them to remember. So asking them not to push the issue, introduce themselves always, and they don't always have to have a label unless the conversation leads to a label like the relationship, what they are, that it's easier for the loved one. I always say to have an escape plan, no matter where you are, somewhere for your loved one to get away. If you're going somewhere else, request a quiet place because there is probably going to be a lot of noise, a lot of distractions, and they probably want to get away for a little bit. They'll get exhausted really quick. So, and not feeling bad about having reprieve for them.
Right, that's key. Noise, my mom doesn't do well with noise. And so I wouldn't take her. Now, I don't have that issue because we don't have, our family members live far away. But I don't have that issue on the holidays. But I can just tell you right now that noise is an issue for anyone who's got any form of dementia. And too much of it can create a lot of anxiety. Because we're also talking about processing, and if they're hearing all these different conversations, that's going to be overwhelming to them. And it brings up what you shared last year. I'm using my mom as an example because it can be Christmas, and unless she knows it's Christmas, it's not Christmas. And for instance, even if she knows it's Christmas that morning, by 10 o'clock, it's not Christmas.
It's not Christmas anymore.
She's just not thinking it, and so my point of bringing that up is that if for some reason you're feeling the need to have a Christmas with the mother or the father or whoever has love, have it on a different day.
That's a great idea.
Well,
yes,
we talked about
up. Yeah, have a Christmas, Thanksgiving, like all those holidays. They don't have to be on the day. I learned that a long time ago when my children started going to college and moving out. That it was easier to have Thanksgiving on a different day. And as they got older and, different families, establish their own life, it's easier to have a day of Thanksgiving, which should be every day anyway, but Thanksgiving on a different day, which allowed them to go to friends' house, other family members' house as they got older. I still got a day, but it just wasn't the day. And that was easy for me because then I could spend time with other family members as well. Because, holidays are stressful without being a caregiver or having someone you're taking care of. It's just a stressful time of year.
That's the whole point. It's already stressful, even if you didn't have someone with a disability. And so...
And a lot of people pulling at you, kind of like wanting you to go places and do things and wanting to do things for you. And sometimes it's just quietness or just, a simple meal or doing your holiday a different day or even a shorter amount of time would be more beneficial than like whole days. Think about how stressful those are.
Absolutely.
Exhausting.
And, it's like, I was just know your audience. For instance, if you already know that you have a big family and they love getting together and they're loud and rambunctious and they like playing games, and then that would probably not be the setting for the loved one with dementia. And what we're trying to reveal to you is, especially if you're new into it, they are not going to know whether or not that is Christmas or Thanksgiving anyway. So if you want to have something special for them, have a small gathering at the house, and then you mentioned something very important last year as well. Now, I'm always coming from the side that my mother's here with me. She's not in an assisted living. But you brought up something last year about sometimes it's not beneficial to even take them out of assisted living. Go have that private celebration there. And you brought up really too, if that is comfortable for them, leaving is not going to be helpful. But also, it's also hard on the staff.
It is.
If you take them away and bring them back and they're out of routine and they start acting out or be anxious, talk more about that.
Yeah. And routine, so even being at home, think about being at home at assisted living, taking them out of routine is very exhausting, and it really leads to a lot of confusion and, as we call them, behaviors, because we want to celebrate. I think sometimes we have to go back to the thought when we're processing what this is about. Why is it important to me? A lot of times we want them to celebrate. But like you're saying, so many times they're not going to remember. You would rather have them happy and calm than to celebrate or be a part of an activity, and they end up with behaviors and angry and frustrated, and then it's not worth it. So taking them back and forth to places may not even be from home or assisted livings, may not be beneficial to your overall goal. Because I think really most of us, holidays are about celebrating, visiting, and then you turn it into something that was not worthwhile. And if the memory is for you, then you have a little bit control. If caregivers have any control, like you're saying, that small celebration or another day, because you kind of know your loved one, and using that as your celebration. Because it's not worth it when they get off and they have so many behaviors and it end up being something that you don't even want to remember because you probably took them a little too far. They got exhausted. So remember why we do the things we do. Like, I always question, like, who is this for? Is it for me or is it for them? Because like you said, if they're not remembering, then it's really for you. Mm-hmm. And if it's for you, then what's gesture? How much is enough? How small can it be? It could just be a short amount of time in the morning. Maybe, I know a lot of families do. We did breakfast at home before we went to celebrate at anybody else's house. So maybe that intimate Christmas breakfast at home, and then maybe that's a good time to use respite care or find another way to make sure that they have the peace they need.
Yeah, no, that's another great point. And again, I keep bouncing back to last season's because that was so helpful to me. And not because I'm under that kind of pressure, but it certainly was helpful in gathering intel for when people ask me about their loved one. But that if you're not aware, as a caregiver, you might be just starting this and educating yourself about the fact that sundowners for most patients starts around 3 o'clock. It's not about when the sun goes down.
No.
And it will also last into the morning until they're up and get situated. So she brings up an idea that if you, with the breakfast thing, if they're more alert in the mid-mornings, and so I would advise, if anyone was asking me, not to do any kind of big-time celebration with them, even at noon, or especially not in the evening.
Not in the evening.
Because you're going to set yourself up for failure, for you and all the loved ones, etc. Look who's back out there picking up leaves. My mother, the temperature's changed, but her Alzheimer's obsession is leaves. So she's back out there, no coat, no gloves, but can't stop her sometimes. But we're here to watch. She's safe, but she's going to be all dramatic about it.
Oh, no.
Carolyn knows her already. She'll come in here with her little hands and put it on Carolyn's face. Ooh, it's cold outside. For instance, that's an example. Like Carolyn, I've already told her it was cold, but she doesn't remember that.
She doesn't remember that.
So,
and you will have to remind her to come in because she's cold, but she does not realize she's cold.
No.
When she gets in, she'll know because you told her.
Yeah. And then she'll be all dramatic about it. And then she will, oh God, what was my thought? Just because it's something that she did earlier. Oh, is she might, like my mother right now picking up leaves doesn't remember that she's already done this 3 or 4 times. All she sees are leaves. But also she likes to show out for Carolyn. So the only reason sometimes she goes outside at this time when I'm doing a podcast is because she knows we can see her. And that's fine. That's important to her. She's being useful. I mean, she can't bend over as much as she used to, but it's going to be funny when they really start falling. I feel like she's going to have some kind of nervous breakdown.
You better get a blower.
Yeah, well, I do.
Pull it out every day.
I do. I blow them off often to keep, especially when it gets really cold. Mm-hmm. So we got a little sidetracked. Now, here's what's going to happen. She's going to try to come through this door, and I've locked it.
I hear her.
All right. Now, she may knock or, because even though I told her, and I left her a sign that we're doing a podcast, she does not know what that really means. We're back on track, though. We're just encouraging you to try to stay away from doing something with the loved one in late afternoon to evening. Loved your idea about a breakfast or like a brunch when they're most alert. So that's a great point.
And just making sure, you brought up a good point too, in the holidays, it's like trying to figure out how they can be purpose, like they can have a purpose in the celebration, because they are not capable of doing what they have been in years past. Maybe they're a great cook in the past, and maybe they want to try, but figure out something so they can have a purpose. Maybe they can't cook the pie anymore, but maybe you can get them to.
Well, I'll tell you what my mama loves, and most of them do, right? Mm-hmm. Whether they're male or female with Alzheimer's, is animals or small children.
Yes.
So put them in charge of just hanging out with the small child. Because their face, my mother's face will just blow up. And you brought this up last year as well.
And children are good with them as well. Yeah. Because they don't have the same expectations as adults.
Well, they're childlike, and your patient, your loved one is going to be childlike. So even if the child is showing them or just like if you have a baby that's in the stroller, say, Mama, will you watch the baby? Or Dad, will you just watch the baby? I'm going to go over here and cook. But that's another good thing that you brought up is probably, even though they may have been a good cook, it's a safety issue as well.
Yes.
If you do give them a task, the reality is I don't know that is important, that you give them a task like that.
if you have to keep them in the kitchen or
Yeah,
they want to help.
like folding napkins or something would be.
Yes, or you can do something simple as, like, I don't know, pick beans. So older people, they used to cook dry beans, and I ask people, like, just give them dry beans and say, hey, pick beans. Because that's what they used to do, and they can spend a lot of time.
Or they could stir something.
Yeah.
Not hot.
Not hot. But I mean, like, if they want to be in the kitchen and you know that they are having difficulty, stuff like picking beans, like really like giving them a bag of beans and like pick the beans. You may be cooking something, you may not be cooking beans at all, but that gives them purpose, and it feels like that they're helping you. And just small tasks to help them feel like they have a purpose and that they're helping, especially when they've been cooks before. Like, find the simple things, even if it has nothing to do with the recipe, so they can be a part of it. Because especially, cooking is one of the most important part of the holidays. So if they're going to be around in the kitchen, they probably want to help in some kind of way. So feel that small task that may seem not important to you, but it keeps them busy.
And then, my mom, the reality is, if there's more than one person in my house, a couple of friends over, all she wants to do is sit there and listen. She's not going to recall, but she's aware that she can't participate, but she's okay with that. So sometimes for them, just being amongst people that are laughing, or maybe, again, we're talking about make sure it's not 20 people who are being loud and get drunk. But I guess the point is don't feel bad if you don't give them something to do to participate. Sometimes just sitting there is enough and plenty for them.
Yes, being a part, just being there. So if they're okay with just being, so a lot of times we are okay with just being amongst people. That's enough. We don't have to feel obligated. You're right, to make them want to do something. If they're just sitting there listening, enjoying just the company, like let that be okay.
Right. And again, we're going to keep stressing this. If you're the primary caregiver and you're putting together, maybe it's your year to do the family gathering, you have absolutely all responsibility but power to let people know what to expect, what not to do. But also, if you're the type of person that does it all, this is where you can lean on other family members to be a part of bringing something, picking something up, so that you're not stressed out. Again, this is as if you already know that you want. Now, you could be having this gathering at your home, and that's where your mama lives. Like, if I had a Christmas gathering, it's going
to be here. Yeah,
it's going to be here. Now, I can tell you right now, and Carolyn knows this from experience, Mom will engage with us, and then she'll excuse herself to where she is comfortable, and that's helpful.
It is helpful.
So you're not, don't assume that you've hurt their feelings. They are going to engage as long as they want to and can before they excuse themselves. So that's helpful. Now,
you said something important.
Yeah, me. It's my mentor.
But I know something to think about. It may be a year. You may feel like, oh, I have to do this, but you don't. You can always say, it's just not, this year is not good for me. And your family members should understand. It's also important to know that you can do new traditions, change the way we do things. So just know what works. That's more stress. Think about it. If it's your year or your time to do something, if you can't do it, you have plenty of time right now. It's not November the 1st yet to let people know.
That's a great point. Gosh, just empower yourself. Empower yourself with, first of all, you're learning, you're educating, you already know enough because you have personal experience. It's not about doing it right, but you're starting to get an idea of what they can and they can't do, their interactions with you, what sets them off, what gives them calm. And here's the deal. If there's not a family member willing to adjust their behavior or adjust the way they want to experience it, they don't have to come. And it's not like you have to set it up. But again, I'm just maybe not assuming that the worst case scenario, but if you don't go ahead and articulate, this is where my mama is, and this is where some of her whatever, you're setting yourself up for failure. And then it's not fair to get mad at the family members. And you don't expect some of the family members that you don't know well all of a sudden to get on Google and start looking it up.
No.
And try to figure it out. It is on you, but what we're trying to tell you is that if you do something ahead like that, it's going to be very helpful. And
again, you're taking care of your loved one, and it's okay to take care of yourself. You're not obligated to anyone else, any other family members. You're obligated at this point and committed to your loved one's well-being and your well-being. So when you think about the holidays, sometimes we learn, I know as I've gotten older, I learned to put them in perspective. And when we love, our family, sometimes we don't have loved ones to spend time with. And your holiday may look different. It just may be you or your loved one. But see the blessing in just being home sometimes. And if somebody wants to bring you a plate by or a meal by, accept it. But like holidays don't have to be so stressful.
You need to be prepared and ready that it's going to affect you. And I'm past that now, especially when it comes to Thanksgiving and Christmas, that I had some grief as well because it wasn't the same, or that she didn't remember it.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand that, accept it, and just be aware that you're going to have some emotions that are going to kind of be there.
Yeah, and I think that's normal, and not to be surprised. Steve says she's kind of worked through it, but when it comes to emotion, you can't be surprised when they rise back up, right? Because you don't know what will set them off or make you start thinking. But know that it could be, we think it's the most wonderful time of the year, but it can also be very emotional and depressing and draining on you as well. So there go another reason to figure out what self-care looks like. Mm-hmm. It may not be important to you to celebrate the holidays, because it may be more emotional on yourself than what you're thinking.
It might be triggering.
It might be triggering.
Like if Thanksgiving, something always dramatic happened, a family fight or something, you're going to think about that. It's going to I never liked Thanksgiving. There was just something about Thanksgiving. So it was not something that I looked forward to. And so it's not something I would go out of my way to celebrate, because there's some tradition to it. And so you may just be aware that you may have some holiday issues yourself. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be ever so right there at the surface, because it might be triggering to you. Could be a death of someone in the family. So you're not going to be on your most high self aware,
high-spirited self, energetic self.
Yeah, and so that is going to have an effect on other family members, as it always does, but it may have an effect on the loved one with dementia.
Because they mirror, remember, they mirror your emotions. So that's another thing to remember as we go through the holidays. Emotion-wise, if you're upset, they're going to be upset. Remember those key tips. And maybe that might be a good reason to have a quiet or even energetic, but just remembering that if it's difficult for you, it could be difficult for them as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right, let's touch base with a few of the key, which all of them are key, but let's do the announcement, the email, educate some family members who might be coming to celebrate the holidays with you and they just don't understand Alzheimer's, or they might, but they don't understand the stage that your loved one is in, and that you plan on. And I think that's a good idea if you feel like, let's say you did grab them and take them from assisted living to be a part of the family unit, because a lot of family hadn't seen them yet, or hadn't seen them in years. Make it short and then have someone. It's probably going to end up being you, and that's why you don't need to be in charge of the entire festivities.
No.
Because it might need to be you taking them back. If you do take them out of assisted living, let assisted living know when and how and where, and because it will have an effect on their behavior when they get back. And you want to honor the caregivers at the assisted living.
And if you can, especially if you let them spend the night, I would say try to take them back in the mornings when they're fresh. Again, on the sun, before they're tired, again, take them back first thing in the morning while, they're fresh and not exhausted. Don't wait until the end of the day, sundowners. And
that's so key, because they might be in assisted living for a couple years now, and then you're going to take them to an environment that maybe that's your home, you and your husband and your children. So it's not,
and then they don't want to leave either.
Or that is an unfamiliar. You're going to have them wake up, in an unfamiliar place. Consider all of those things and how they might affect the loved one. You don't want them to wake up afraid. Plus, my mom's in this little thing now where she thinks the bedroom that she sleeps is way far away. So she wants every night when we start to say goodnight and get ready for bed, she goes, I think I want to sleep in that room right next to you, which is the guest room. And I'm like, well, you say that every night, but you don't really want to, because you like your room. And Mom, seriously, I'm right here. And I'll say, and you like to get up and you're familiar with your room and you love the fact that your bathroom's right there. And if you open up the door, the cats are going to, I try to paint this picture of a little bit of, and she's like, okay. I said, but you're certainly welcome to. So she's kind of in that little phase. So I got away from that to just kind of let you know about that, Carolyn. But just know, too, that if you decide, and again, we're kind of hoping that you're not going to do an evening festivity with your loved one because of the effects on them. But if you do have them spend the night, maybe it is a familiar place. I don't know. It's all different, right?
But
think it through.
Sometimes what you think is familiar is not familiar because remember, especially Alzheimer's, it is a memory disease. Yeah. So just because you think it's familiar does not mean that it's familiar to them.
That's exactly right. Mom's lived here over 40-something years, and the other day she looked out the window and said nothing looked familiar. And then sometimes she wakes up in the morning. Usually it's in the afternoon that she'll have these where she'll say, did we grow up in this house? So again, we're talking about, even though they can't articulate what they're thinking and feeling, just know they're thinking and feeling.
Yeah, they have thoughts.
Don't talk around them. Don't talk about them around them, as if you've experienced that with my mom. She's like, she's acting like I'm not standing here. I have to be very careful.
Yes, and she does. She will call you out on that. And like you said, she's lived here for 40-some years, but this house does not look the way it looked 40 years ago because there's been updates and things have changed. So, I mean, the last time we were here, we were talking about the door that was in the den.
Yeah.
So think about how the house has changed and how her memory may remember her house, and this is no longer her house.
Yeah, and as she gets more advanced, she's not going to recognize anything.
No. So familiar to you does not mean it's familiar to them. And
good point.
I think that's very important to know, and to remind, to say this is your home can be very frustrating. Just saying you're welcome here is maybe a better statement, but to tell someone that it's their home and they know it's not, although it may be, that can be very frustrating to them, because what they're thinking is this is not my home because their home looks a particular way. time and place, and it's not in there. You're not at that place now.
And another thing that Carolyn brought up that I think is a good idea, if in your email or whatever you send out to your family members, that have them introduce themselves, but they don't have to say they're the second cousin of the, for two reasons. First of all, they're not going to remember. And you're assuming that they know that they're there for a family gathering.
Yes.
And if they are, I don't even know what the term, let's say sharper than normal, okay? I'm just saying more aware than normal. If the family member is going, yeah, don't you remember that on the farm we used to, you're reminding them of things they can't remember. Mm-hmm. And you're talking to them as if something's wrong. Because if they can't remember, they're going to be very aware of that. My mother's very aware. And I try to stay away from that term. As you well know, the podcast is called Don't You Remember? But less is more.
It is.
So just say, like you said, hi, I'm Linda. If they ask, where do I know you from? Go ahead.
Yes.
You can do a little fiblet if you want to. It's not going to matter.
And if they think you're somewhere else, cautiously, it's okay. I say cautiously. Because, family members, we look alike a lot of times, and they may think you're someone else, maybe your mother or their sister. So you could be someone else to them. And I do say cautiously because you don't know, especially if you don't know the relationship that they had with the person, because they may be upset with that person, but, cautiously.
That's a good point. I can tell you that my mom sometimes will look at a certain picture that's hanging in my room and she doesn't know who it is. It's her. And one time she thought it was her sister, and the other time she just asked who it was. And then one time she goes, is that me? So, because she doesn't look that way. So, you're going to have a lot of photos and stuff around, but just know that just less is more. If it's important to you that they're around, do everything you can to make it as comfortable as possible. But again, if you do know that you kind of have a rowdy family who likes to get rambunctious and do whatever, maybe that's just not the time to celebrate with your loved one. And just take those different aspects, because again, everyone's situation is different. Some of what we're talking about, though, you might have it's very familiar. Like it's a pretty familiar theme with a dementia patient. Yes.
Some family members choose, this is a good year for time of the year for respite. Actually, using assisted living maybe for respite during the holidays, especially if you need to travel, take a break. Some families use respite this time of year, so their family members don't have to go through these exhausting days, and they can get a break as well. So don't feel guilty if you decide to take respite.
Don't travel. Certainly don't fly. I made a huge mistake with both my parents. And I didn't know. It was young. It was early on. And that was a nightmare. Not only did we fly somewhere, there was a time change. All right, so that's like the most extreme case. But you might think, well, I'm going to Uncle John's. I'm going to take, Mom used to love Uncle John, and he just lives 3 hours away. I can tell you right now that trip to them is a day, if not 2 days.
It is. So
just trust us. You may think it's a short trip, but to them, it is scary, especially being in a car that long. And it is going to be as if they traveled 10 hours.
10 hours and even a couple hours. It's going to be an exhausting, long ride to them. So remember, routine is always important. So anything we do, even if we think is fun, you're still taking them out of their routine.
That's true, because, remember I took Mom to the little zoo event that the Alzheimer's Arkansas had, and we were there an hour, and she was over
done,
it. And we were looking at cute animals, and she loves animals, but again, and that was just 10 minutes away. But that's where I really learned where I really learned, wow, that concept of time is bizarre.
Concept is bizarre. And we all kind of probably have this. I was telling somebody, I went to bed late last night, not like late, and I had to be somewhere early this morning, and I went to sleep, and I felt like I was asleep for like hours. Have you ever done it? But then you wake up, and I was like, oh, I've only been asleep 45 minutes. I thought I'd like slept all night, but concept of time is really important, and they don't have a perception of time anymore, a lot of them. So knowing that your 10 minutes could be a long amount of time to them.
Absolutely. I mean, I know this from personal experience, and even if, I wish that would stop doing it. I'm sorry for this technical difficulty I'm not expecting, but I keep telling it I don't want it to use that, and it keeps asking me. So I'm not sure what I've done here. My new setup meant that there was some changes. I'm going to put these on for a minute and see if that pops back up. So if we're having some technical difficulties, because I feel like I'm in an echo, my apologies.
Yes. So I've started to take technical difficulties as life is lifeless sometimes. Everything can't be perfect. So
no, and normally we have really successful podcasts.
Yes.
But I don't think I have things set up wrong, but I don't know. We're just going to listen to it afterwards. But I do hear an echo. I'm hoping I don't hear that.
So if you took today's podcast and brought it full circle to holidays, think of all the unexpected things that happen and how we're trying to control things that we don't have control over, right? Even the little things. So we have to remember that, and look how well we're handling it. So know that holidays don't have to be stressful. You can have, and in a world of caregiving where we're trying to find control somewhere, there is some hope because you can control some aspect of it.
My other thought is this. Now, my mother's very verbal, very social, as Carolyn knows. So we're talking about emotional intelligence, and 95% of the time they want to seem, and maybe they just think they're okay, And the reason I say that is, for instance, I know for a fact over a year ago, my mother made it known to me that she did not like leaving the house on those day trips. They were fun for a while, but then they were too much for her. Again, we might go to Pettigene, which was 45 minutes away, but to her, she thought we spent the night. And she would come home and be wiped out. She had a great time, but she was wiped out from the experience. And so I made the decision. I mean, there's only so many times that your loved one can say that, and you'd only be doing it for yourself if you decided to do it again, because I enjoyed these trips with her. So the point of that example is that they'll surprise you sometimes, and I'll set, like the other day, Linda and Jim Tater are the ones that used to go with us on these day trips. We'd go every Friday. And so Mom she goes, oh, now who are they? I said, well, we play games with them now, but we used to go on trips with them, day trips. She goes, oh, that would be fun. Let's do that again. That's okay that she said that, because we're not going to do that again.
Yeah.
Because that was a year ago, and it would not go well. But it's okay that she said that, and you don't have to challenge that she said it. Just go, okay.
Yeah, and you don't have to try to make it happen because she said it either. Because I know sometimes people will say, well, they said they wanted to, but they don't have the rationale to know that they can't handle it anymore. So be careful of that too. But trying to make their wishes happen.
Yeah,
that's not always good either.
And it's weird because sometimes it can fool you into thinking that they're okay, and we kind of want that.
Yeah, yes, we do. So that's our hope in this, right? Like
it's going to improve, which it's not.
It's not. The other thing is food. So I know we're not going to be here long. So their taste buds change. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, good point. This is a good one to finish on.
And
You're right.
Not to expect them to eat things, or even if they say something, like knowing that they're impulsive. So also being ready for maybe what you may see as embarrassing. So that's like comments and stuff. So like maybe somebody cooked it, they try something and they may just say this is nasty or gross.
And it might be really delicious.
Good.
But
to them it's not. And knowing that, and that's another part of education, is just saying, I don't know, what they may say, or, and it's not them, it's the disease. So, that's another education part of it that I think sometimes we miss out on, and we hope that they don't say anything, but I think we should educate on the impulse part of it.
That for sure, and that's another good thing to put in the email.
Yes.
Is that most days she's very sweet and kind, but if she gets overwhelmed, she might say this or might say that. So be prepared. The food thing is interesting too. I think you brought this up last time. You know how people want to bring out their best dishes, and it might be real flowery type dishes, have a big pattern of Santa on it. I don't know. But if you can keep the plate like white. One color, you have to remember we're talking.
I think they eat better off red or something. I'm trying to remember. But making sure that the food looks appetizing, that they can see it.
Don't throw a bunch of stuff up there on that food.
No, and they don't need a lot of food. They don't need everything, and just a good portion and colorful food. If you can get some green and yellow, but
don't overwhelm them, and also don't be concerned if they don't want to eat. My mom does not want to eat in front of people. So we might have a nice, you've been here for before, and we'll have soup and bread, and she might want to just come in here because she loves you and she wants to be with you. But what will she say? I'm not hungry. I don't like food. Don't you want to know why I don't like food? She'll go into this long story. But it's a decision-making process that they're not comfortable with. And it's hard. They're not going to be able to explain it to you. So if they do like to eat, let's say that they do have a familiar thing that they love, put that on there.
And let that be okay.
Yeah. I mean, you want them to feel a part of it, but just because you give them a white plate and everyone else has Santa, it's okay. I promise. They're not going to be offended.
Or if you make them their favorite food on the side that may not have anything to do with the holidays, but they'll eat that, just make that and let everyone else eat what they want to eat. Because, nutrition is the most important part, not that they eat what everyone else is eating, because they tend to start liking sweets a little bit more.
And then that'll change. All right, so I did feel like we hit some of the main topics, don't you?
I do. I think I don't know if there's anything we left out, but remember that you can redefine or defy your holidays. So we give you permission to empower yourself. I think that's most important, that we understand that, nothing is the same anymore, and you have permission to make the necessary changes for you and your loved one, however that may look.
Right.
I
agree.
Important.
I know the holiday is about family, and it might be your favorite holiday, but we're just telling you it's okay if you don't include them for their own comfort and peace, and for yours, but do something else different for them if that is important to you. It's going to be okay, I promise. It's just, especially if you're not used to it, I don't know what that deal is, that little buzz. Well, you didn't hear it, but I did hear it. So cut yourself some slack. Know that you will also have some emotions that are probably underneath the surface that are going to surface, and it's going to cause you a little bit of issues because it's grief.
It is grief.
Because things have changed, and your mom or your dad this might be their favorite holiday, and he's the one that fixed the turkey, and your mother, I don't know. But there's going to be some things that you're going to miss about that, so you're going to have to be ready for that aspect of it. Well, we hope we've given you some practical tools, and we wish you all the best.